Hello and welcome back to the channel, and thank you for joining me on another of my fascinating interviews. Now, when I was young, my dad told me that he used to hypnotize people. He was in the RAF and he used to do this sort of, look into my eyes and do all this sort of stuff. And he tried it on me and I was rubbish. I could not get put under. He said, "Oh, you're a bad subject." But I was fascinated by this, and I learned a little bit from my dad, and then I read up a few books because I was interested in the whole sort of being able to relax, get in touch with your subconscious self and all of that for healing, and to deal with pain and habits that you didn't want. Well, I lost interest in that sometime, but it is one of those things which is very important for us to have a more control of ourselves and to be able to relax and look after ourselves. And in these very stressful times where we're a bit uncertain about where things are going, it's more than ever an important thing. Well, I'm very pleased to bring to the interview today, to the video, Robito Chatwin, who is, I've written this down, a full-time meditator. So we may have to wake him up then to get some chats out of him. He is also a UK uni tutor of critical thinking, which is something very much approve of, and a hypnotherapist, I beg your pardon. Robito, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure.
And now you're going to have to tell me, first of all, a full-time meditator does sound, on the face of it, as if you're there in the lotus position doing all this and life just passes you by. You're going to have to explain what that means.
Yeah, so the reason that I say a full-time meditator is, and this kind of dives into how I ended up becoming a hypnotherapist, is when I was growing up, I suffered from suicidal ideation. And suicidal
Suicidal,
ideation, I
which
say
is
ideation, not thoughts, because
right.
the difference is that I didn't actually want to kill myself. I just believed that I'd be much better off if I wasn't here. There was
Right.
kind of two reasons for that. One of them was I grew up in a part of England, a part of Nottinghamshire, that was quite a rough area. And what I saw out there didn't really make sense to me. Things like, girls getting pregnant very young, cars being stolen, drugs. There was guys that used to walk around every Friday night with baseball bats and smash up the wine bar.
Charming.
But also, I had this feeling that where I'd come from before I was born, I was much better off there. This was at a young age, growing up. So that took me down a path of my mission became at one point in my life, in my early 30s, I'm 45 now, was how to be happy. I decided I'm going to do what it takes to be happy. So I went to a bookshop and ended up probably in the self-help section. But I ended up finding, books on meditation because meditation talks about ending your suffering.
Right.
Um, so I took meditation very seriously and trained to bring my attention into the present moment. And it's like when you go to the gym, I don't have lots of muscle or anything like that, but it's kind of brain training rather than, muscle training. Is that if you keep bringing your attention back to the present, at some point, your neuroplasticity, your brain will start to cooperate and you can remain in the present. And what I mean by remaining in the present doesn't mean that I never think about tomorrow or anything like that. But I'm not in that space of like continually going into tomorrow, or yesterday. I feel very much like my attention is here. And just to give you a quick example, I literally spent 3 months in a hammock in Sri Lanka at one point, looking at the sea and just bringing my attention back down to just focusing on the sea. Because I felt that it was working. I could feel inside myself that I was finding peace, and it was taking away that the depression that I was in. So when I say full-time meditator, what I mean is that I've done it to an extent that neuroplasticity, my brain cooperates, and I feel very much like I'm focusing on what's happening right now.
So Okay, so hang on. Let me just go onto the hammock thing. You said 3 months in a hammock. I mean, you saying literally 3 months in a hammock, or you must have got out and stretched your legs and nipped to the loo and gone for some food or whatever, you know. But
Yeah,
you
yeah, I can. So before COVID, before the last three
yeah,
years,
that's all right.
I was nomadic. I was very much a traveler, and I was in Sri Lanka, and I was helping out this lady to set up an Airbnb on the beach. And in exchange for me to help her set up this Airbnb, I had accommodation and food. And I took that opportunity to focus on training. So I had my breakfast, I went to the hammock, I would sit there. And yeah, of course, if she needed help with some work in the house or working on the website for the Airbnb and things like that, then yeah, I got up and I did stuff. Or if I needed to go to the loo, but but it was my practice for 3 months was to just keep going back to that. I mean, they thought I was a bit nuts, but I'd just go back to the hammock and then just bring my attention back and just focus on that.
So would you say that's a preferred state for you then? You know, a lot of people they'll have a lot of busy, you know, we all get ourselves into extremely busy life. My life at the moment, unintentionally, is extremely busy, and I wish it wasn't. And when you say, you know, sitting in a hammock looking at the sea, it just that sounds idyllic. I could do that for probably 3 or 4 hours. And then I'd be sort of a little bit itchy to get back, check the messages, make another video, try and communicate with people and do what I do. So is that your preferred, you know, to sort of push away the rest of the busy world and stuff that's clearly not of interest or importance to you, and that focusing on the now, as it were, is much more beneficial, I guess?
No, I
Right. Okay.
I well, first of all, now I'm also extremely busy,
Right.
and
So no 3 months in a hammock for you at the moment.
not now. So
No.
I'm very privileged to have had that opportunity in the past to be able to do that. I used to
Mm.
work for the summer, and I still do work for the summer for a university in England teaching critical thinking. Take that money, and then for 9 months of the year, I was traveling around India, Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, anywhere where the currency was in our favor, and I could quite easily live off that money and work on farms and do volunteering and lie in hammocks and do meditation courses and things like this.
Mm.
But no, from a scientific perspective, and this goes into hypnosis as well, is we've got these brainwave states. So beta, alpha, theta, delta. And beta is the active brainwave state where we're thinking, thinking, thinking.
And is that what
And
we would be in now, having a conversation?
yeah, I haven't had a brain scan to see what's going on in my
No.
brain. So I could be more in the alpha, a bit more in the alpha.
Right.
But the beta is, yes, we're in the beta now. We're thinking, we're discussing, we're using our cognitive
Yeah.
brain. Um, but the thing with the beta, with the active thoughts, is that we are normally rushing off into the future or into the past. It's kind of a scientific explanation for what, you know, in spirituality they've talked about for thousands of years is, you know, going into the future and worrying, going into the past and regretting. In scientific terms, they say that that is probably a survival process from years ago when we had to protect ourselves from tigers and lions and things like that. There is, I tend to believe more that it's conditioning because there is the Piha tribe, I believe it's pronounced in the Amazon, and they don't have any language for the future or the past. They only have language for the present, and they're considered one of the happiest tribes on the planet. So perhaps we're conditioned to worry
Yeah.
about exams and getting a job and all of those things. Um, but when we bring our focus into the present, we move from the beta into the alpha. And there's a part of the brain called the default mode network, which lights up in brain scans when we're very active in the beta, going into the the past and the future, so the worrying part. And then when we go into the alpha, that part of the brain, the default mode network, shuts down. So that explains why anxiety reduces, stress reduces, depression reduces when we can bring ourselves more into the present. So it doesn't mean that you're ignoring what's going on in the world. It just
No.
means that you're more focused on what's important and relevant right now.
So is that if I can turn it into a bit of analogy, is that like you're in a busy town, everything's all over, you've got the lights, you're crossing the road, life is going on. You step into a library where by convention it's quiet, and by convention people aren't talking and they're not bothering, and you sit down and you choose a book and you may be sitting down there and just reading. So you're in a calm space. The world is still going on. It's not your attention at that particular moment, or for
Yeah,
the duration
exactly.
of being in the library.
Yeah, exactly. Or, you're at a party or with a group of people and you're talking to someone and you're focused on what they're saying. You're listening to them and your attention isn't going off to,
Yeah.
what else is
Who's
going
that
on
person who's
around you.
just come in? Oh, he's more influential. Excuse me, I've got to go. No, you're
Yeah, yeah.
actually, yeah. It's funny because I went to mime school many years ago, and one of the things we were taught, this is sort of a by the way, it's body language, is that if you're talking to somebody, if your chest, your heart is facing the person, even though you could be looking like this, you're still with the person, you're concentrating and you're listening to them, even though you're looking. You know that that person is not going to leave you. Whereas if your chest is over here and I'm looking at you, I am at any moment likely to disappear, because this is only transitory, because my heart is not in it. So
Yeah,
because
well, there's quite a lot. There's quite interesting, this whole kind of heart space thing. Um,
but I've just thrown you there for a bit. So you
no,
were going
no,
through
it's it.
the beta, the alpha.
Well, it fits in. So
Okay.
the beta is, going into the worries. The alpha is then the focus on the present. Um, and then you've got the theta and the delta. Delta is sleep, and theta is the hypnagogic state. So it's a slower brainwave state. So to go into the hypnagogic state, you first of all focus. So you're focusing on the hypnotherapist's voice. And then to go into the theta, that's the relaxation, the letting go, the surrendering, the trusting, which takes you down into that theta state where you're more connected to your subconscious because you're getting closer down to the sleep state. And when you're in that state, you are also very much connected to your intuition or your subconscious or your heart space, because from that heart space, there's the um, studies they've done. It'll come back to me in a moment, but the studies they've done on when you focus on the heart space, and for example, you focus on gratitude, Heart Math Institute was the name I was thinking of,
All right.
is that when you focus on the heart and gratitude, your heart starts beating in this coherence, in this very clear rhythm. So there is actually a lot of mystery, but also science to explain why that heart is so important. So as you said, focusing your heart on who you want to communicate with
Yes.
has a lot of power. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the point of meditation, is to relax you and get you away from all the everyday worries and the worries of the future and the things you can't do about the past, but as you say, the regrets, and that must then give you guidance for your, well, not so much guidance, but take away a lot of the pressures of life, because if you're constantly in the beta and you're always worrying about this, that and the other, you can't, you're in that state that you perhaps were in when you were younger, thinking of suicidal thoughts. Is that,
Yeah, I
I'm
like
just trying to see the advantage. I mean, there is obviously an advantage, and people do talk about mindfulness and stress-free lives and all of that. But clearly, there's more to it than just simple, clearing of the mind and going, okay, I can get back to work now.
Yeah, I know. I like to explain, the spirituality, if you like, of meditation with the science. It really interests me. So, if you're thinking like, oh, I should quit my job, no, say you feel like you should quit your job because you're not really happy, but you're thinking that, yes, but I need the money, And what am I going to do if I quit my job? And what about the bills and things like that? So obviously the worrying part is the beta. When we bring ourselves into the present and we feel that intuition, that's how we really feel inside. And this is where it gets a bit more kind of spiritual, is that if you follow that intuition, if a person follows that intuition rather than the worry headspace, what many people talk about, and it's my experience as well, is that when you follow and trust that, everything seems to work out. And when everything seems to work out, in the beginning, at least in my experience, I went through, okay, that was a coincidence. And then you follow it again. So you go through that fear, the getting out of the comfort zone, and trust, okay, I'm just going to trust it again and see what happens this time. And then it works out again. And then you start moving from the language of coincidence to synchronicities because everything just seems to be working out. Then often people talk about the universe is helping me. What would you like me to do next, universe? I'm just going to kind of follow this. And then that's where you would say, faith. You start to get to a point where, like, I'm really at a point now that I feel that if I just trust my intuition, I will be safe. I'll be kept safe. I'll be taken in the right direction. That this knows much better for me what I need than this does, because the beta, from my perspective, it's just programming. If you were born in Japan, you would have a completely different idea of politics, what's right and wrong, how to behave, than if you're born in another country. So
Right. So
that's part of it, yeah.
more nurture rather than nature type thing.
Yeah, and also it's kind of trusting that your inner knowing or your subconscious um, knows what's good for you. Your own. So one of my mottos is, we free ourselves within. When we go inside, we know what our journey is. So when I do a hypnotherapy session, it's, I'll take someone into that state, and then I'll say, what is the next best step for you to be in your best alignment moving forward? So it's a personal journey. It's
Yes.
what's right for that person. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, let's should we talk about hypnosis then, and what it is and what it's not, because there's a lot of confusion about whether it's a sort of hocus pocus mind control type of thing. As I said at the beginning of the show, my dad showed me his stuff because when he was in the RAF, he was interested in this sort of area, and there were people smoking who wanted to stop smoking because they couldn't do the running and the stuff in the RAF that they had to do, and so he was helping them do this. When he tried it on me, because he was my dad and I was interested in it, I could not lower. I was still in the beta stage. I was sort of analysing what he was doing to me, so I couldn't switch off. And I, realised later on that part of the process of hypnosis is having the belief in the person is able to do it. And because he was my dad, the relationship was very different. So let's find out if you can give us a rough idea of. I know you said what it isn't. So let's clear out what it isn't first.
Yeah, and what you just touched upon there is you need a belief that the person can do it. That's also quite interesting. But what it isn't is mind control. Most people, a lot of people worry that when you go into hypnosis, that stage hypnosis, someone can make you behave like a chicken or something like this. I think the most important thing for people to understand about hypnosis is that you have to willingly go into it. It doesn't. Nobody can make you do it, and so there are risks. For example, consumer psychology. I always use the example of the Super Bowl. When you're relaxed with your friends, focusing on the TV, and so you're relaxing into that state, you're watching the Super Bowl. That's why they'll pay millions for an ad, because they know that everybody is either in the alpha or they're sinking down into the theta. They're getting very connected to the subconscious, and those ads are going to go straight into your subconscious. So you are being influenced by the adverts, the commercials. That's why, consumer psychology is so successful.
Yes.
But it's a willingness. Television could be a coincidence that you have programs, but television is, if you are focused and relaxed into that state in anything that you do, that is connecting to your subconscious. So it's not mind control, but it is very good to be aware of the connection to the subconscious is does exist, and it happens when we allow ourselves, we kind of give a bit away our own personal control, if you like. We're giving it a little bit away to what we're focusing on, and that is having an influence on us.
And would you say that in that moment, the critical thinking starts to disappear because you're allowing somebody else's opinion to change your mind? And I'm thinking here specifically of television in the way that people often say it's indoctrinating, but I do think it's also using hypnosis, because as you're relaxing, it's telling you of cultural ways. They always say, oh, it's reflecting culture, but I don't think that's true. I think it's the other way around, that it's actually showing you a culture that you aspire to and you should have. Hence adverts are always saying, this brand new thing and everything looks wonderful. Get rid of your kitchen, have a new kitchen. You think there's nothing wrong with my kitchen, but you're aspiring to this, oh yeah, I'll pay the several £1,000s, pay now and get it now, pay later. And all of this seems to be hypnotizing people to aspire to a lifestyle which is continually beyond their reach. Yeah, particularly in adverts.
I would say that the biggest thing that we could do to regain our freedom is stop watching TV.
Yeah,
because it's a hypnosis tool. I mean, of course, we had radio before. I don't know how true it is, because I've read that the War of the Worlds, when everybody went into panic, that possibly didn't happen. So I don't know whether it did or didn't happen. But if it did happen, it's still you're listening to the radio, you're focusing on the sound, and you're relaxing into the experience. So that can bring up some inner fears and things like this. But yeah, the television has become the biggest tool to shape the direction of society, because so many people are focused on it. A thought exercise that I like is, like, if over the last 3 years, if we didn't watch television, if we hadn't watched any television for the last 3 years, how would that have impacted the way that we felt about the last 3 years? So
I totally agree. And I think the other thing is, we give those people who appear on a box in our living room the authority to be more knowledgeable than we are. And we don't know who they are. They tell us they're a professor of this, that and the other. They're introduced as such and such, and they've got these credentials. We've no idea if that's true. And they're telling us stuff, and stupidly we just accept it and go, oh my goodness, there's this situation coming and these people are telling us we should do this about it. And it doesn't matter really what it is. And so they become very important. So we're watching them on the edge of our seats thinking, oh, and we're not actually hearing about something in the old days before radio and television and even newspapers, where you hear something, oh, there's something going on in the next village. Oh, I don't believe any of that. That would be rubbish. Where you are actually discussing it and making up your own mind. Instead, we've allowed this indoctrination to come one way, which, coming back to hypnosis, is where I guess there's the fear that someone can be put under a hypnotic trance and they're relaxed, and that the person who's carrying this out may or may not be trustworthy. So you've got to have that trust in case they're saying, undesirable things. You think I'm incredibly beautiful. I am very attractive to you. You feel that all these sort of seductive things that perhaps if you were in that situation, you wouldn't actually want.
Yes and no, because first of all, yeah, I agree with you totally about the TV and the news, for example. Like, we know that the news is a narrative. We know that they've chosen those stories and that those stories are what they want us to know. But at the same time, you said, are we turning off our critical thinking skills? People watch the news and believe that this is what I need to know. So there is a kind of a switching off of the when you go into the theta, we want to leave the thinking behind and go into emotion and go into feeling in order to, if it's a hypnotherapy session, to do healing or to get insights and guidance. Um, but the thing is, when you go into the theta, into the hypnagogic state with a hypnotherapist, you are fully aware of everything they say. You don't go anywhere.
Mm.
You can hear what they're telling you. You could literally just open your eyes and just walk away if you didn't like it. Um, so and one example I give of that is like, just imagine, only imagine that your eyelids are so glued down, stuck down, or so relaxed that when you try to open them now, you can't. Well, if you only imagine that your eyes are that relaxed, then you'll cooperate. But if you're thinking, now this is rubbish, you'll just open your eyes and walk away.
So what you're saying is you're not actually stuck in that situation. The power is still with you as the patient or the person relaxing. Is that right?
Yes. That there is one thing though, when you were talking about your dad and you were saying that you felt that, you have to trust that this can really happen.
Mm.
Um, that there's two ways that you can do hypnosis, not just hypnotherapy, but obviously stage hypnosis as well. Um, One of them is the one that I do because I truly believe in, you can just explain how it works and then allow the person to do it all for themselves. And the other is arguably, I don't know so much about stage hypnosis, so I'm not kind of, having a go, but
Yeah.
a bit more manipulative, if you like, because the other way is to convince the other person that you have a special power.
Right.
Because if you, for example, in a stage hypnosis show, say, all right, everybody put your hands together, notice how your hands are stuck together, and I'm not doing this with you now,
No, I know, and you can't pull
and
them
then you
apart.
can't pull the hands apart. Those people that can't, and a lot of people will be able to do that, the people that can't have fallen into the belief that this person has some sort of special power over them. Um, so
And it's all
it's
suggestion, isn't it? It is that power of suggestion, which of course goes back to the adverts and the television and stuff. It's suggesting something, and you've because I know that when I did do a bit of hypnosis, and there was I know you probably have this. At the time, I was hypnotizing a few people, and I was trying experimenting and what have you. And I could tell who was very susceptible and who wasn't. I can't put into words that what it was about that person. They could be very intelligent or not so intelligent. I'm not saying that anyone's not intelligent, but what I mean is some people were very, very sort of. But that even I could, even though I could say, "Oh, you're quite susceptible," and I might do something, and it did. Having the distance of time now, I've thought about this since and thought, could I look at someone and see who's susceptible? No, I can no longer do it because I'm not really in tune with the people that I used to, how I was in tune with them. But it's that susceptibility or susceptibility of believing, and I think that's the power of stage hypnosis, because I used to work in theatre and stuff, and you've got the posters up, and it's all sort of dark and bearded and leather and all this sort of nonsense, but it's giving you the suggestion that here is somebody with these special powers. So as the audience comes in, there's all that sort of theatre, which is all just making this ordinary person who walks out on stage appear more powerful and what have you than perhaps when you go to a hypnotherapist who's just, like yourself, an ordinary person who's sitting there and saying, right, okay, I'm now going to, we're going to go into this session. So as you say, there's two completely different ways of getting it.
Yeah,
And
it's called the Gandalf moment. You
oh,
want
is
to
it?
convince that person. Well, it was, at least
Yeah.
from where I trained. They called it the Gandalf moment. So, for example, you can say, put your hands together, open your fingers, put them just above your eyes, and that just makes your eyes feel a bit sleepy. And put them just above your eyes, and then just only imagine that hypnosis putting your fingers together. Well, if you do that, your fingers will come together anyway. But
Right.
if you can convince, or if you can suggest to the person that the hypnosis is now pulling your fingers together, you're like, oh, this is happening. You can see
Yeah.
it in their face, like, oh, something's happening now. And then they'll go into it. But there's a fairer way to do it,
Mm.
which is the way I do it, which is just to explain, follow my voice, you'll go into the alpha, let go, relax, and surrender and trust as much as you can, and you'll sink down into the theta, and that you will hear everything that's being said. You could open your eyes at any moment and walk away. Because there are stories, maybe you heard that in the theatre, of some people that have done stage hypnosis, and then afterwards they say that they knew everything that was going on and they didn't feel good doing this on the stage, but they did it anyway. So
Mm.
it's almost like, well, it's not, you could argue it's not fair,
Mm.
because then what's happening is you've already invested now into that. You're on the stage, you're with other people, they're participating as well. And so it's kind of, the option of just walking away off the stage and reclaiming that control doesn't seem an option anymore. So you
Yes.
just you go more into it, and then that comes back into authority as well. Like people with a uniform, how we'll just follow what they say because we feel like that uniform gives them some authority over us.
Yes.
So it's very different to understanding how it works and then just allowing yourself to relax down. And the way that I do it is very much content free. So it's not about me. It's the first part of the session, of the first session that I do with anyone, is relax down into that state and then release any negative images, feelings, thoughts, emotions that are not helping you, not serving you. When you allow those to come up, I'll say, imagine there's a light, there's an energy, just pulling them out the top of your head and feel them release. What you're doing there is you're releasing any internally stored stress. So when you release that internally stored stress, that has a positive effect on psychosomatic conditions, which could be mood or physical, because you're releasing that stress from the body. If there's something that deep that comes up, then we can explore, a trauma from the past. But otherwise, the other part is guidance. So then you can say, imagine there's a door, you go through that door. On the other side of that door, you're going to see the most important image or the most important memory from your life that's going to help you to move forward. And then you see from in that state what you need to see moving forward. And then if it's something like I see myself very unhappy as a child, then we can explore that. And when we explore it, it's also not me suggesting anything. It's just, well, how do you feel when you look at that child? I feel
Mm.
sad. Okay, so go over to that child. What does that child want to share with you? It's feeling lonely. So it's working with the person and the feelings and the emotions to clear out stuff, and also you can change the flavor, as I call it, of how you feel about things in the past. So if I could quickly share
Mm.
a really nice example is, and sometimes it takes several sessions, but there was one person that had abuse when she was young, and so it seems a bit strange, but it was really powerful. Just for a moment, revisit that scene, and then make that person into your favorite cartoon character. Throw in colors, throw in chocolate. Do whatever you want to do to make that situation seem completely silly, completely irrelevant, not important to you anymore. And then afterwards, what happens is, so this person said to me after one session that she doesn't get nervous anymore when her boyfriend comes and touches her from behind and she doesn't realize that he's there. She doesn't have nightmares anymore. And when she goes back to that scene, you don't see Bugs Bunny or something, but when you go back to that scene, it just doesn't feel like you need to worry about it anymore. You've
The
taken
power over
away.
you has gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've had that. You've done that yourself.
Yeah, and you do it
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then with the not smoking, I don't usually do it this way, but it's the reverse. So with not smoking, it's notice how sad your children are, notice how guilty you feel. when you take that cigarette. I don't like to do that because I think that's also covering up the core issue of why you started
Mm.
smoking in the first place. It's much better to go down into where that smoking started from and then make peace with that rather than trying to reprogram someone into feeling guilty for having a cigarette, because then whatever that cause was, they'll probably find something else to replace it with. You
Right.
know, it's a coping mechanism for something that happened, and usually everything starts in the childhood.
Yeah. Oh, that. No, that's very interesting because I was just thinking then, as you said that, I had a lady who was a Reiki practitioner, and she said, you know, you've got to be able to look in the mirror and love yourself, and if you can't love yourself, there's usually things back in the childhood that you can address, and then you put those right back at the cause, so that when you then look at yourself in the mirror, all those things have gone, those things that are surrounding you, but which you know you sort of carrying that baggage and not really knowing you're carrying it, and you may have habits that you didn't expect because of things in the past. It just shows you how important childhood is, and how much we don't think about that when we're bringing up our children, especially if stuff has happened to us, and you know you sort of justify it was good enough for me, it's going to be good enough for you, and
Yeah. Well, I talk about turning the key. So, like, you go in, it's a bit like when I was talking about that suicidal ideation, and I decided there was a switch that happened inside me that I'm going to do whatever it takes to be happy.
mm,
When you can find that switch or that key to where it all stems from, then everything else will just start falling into place. Um, oh, and also about, yes, when you're a child, Dr. Bruce Lipton sa says, claims that it's those first kind of 4 or 5 years of our life that we actually spend the majority of that time in the theta brainwave state. So when we're in that childhood state, you know, we're actually absorbing information. So when your parents say, you know, stop being so naughty, you don't understand that actually they're just, you know, embarrassed because you're jumping in a puddle in front of other people or something.
mm,
And you take that personally. So you're absorbing that information as truth from a very young age. And yeah, a lot of, not everything, but a lot of our issues stem from the issues from our parents, you know, being passed on from generation to generation.
yeah. No, that side of it's absolutely fascinating. What about self hypnosis? That's something you see in self help books and things. It's like, and you think, oh, well, that saves me some money. I don't need to keep going to a therapist to pay out, you know, fees. I can just read a book and try and put myself in it. Is that beneficial? Does it work, or is that something that you would then do if you've seen a therapist and you've got a bit more understanding on how hypnosis works?
It's another fascinating topic. When you when you meditate
Mm,
and you're going into the alpha, you can take yourself down into the theta, obviously, because you're meditating, you're in a
mm,
nice comfortable chair or something, and you're relaxing more and more and more. That's why people have these experiences, you know, that could be called a Kundalini experience or something like that. The difference is you don't have any control over what's happening. Um, when you do a self-hypnosis program, you know, it's usually going to be listening to someone, a recording. Um, it's, of course, you can follow those words. You can listen to it beforehand to make sure that they're not going to ask you to do anything you don't like, but
yes.
you can just follow those words, relax down, focusing on their voice, and you can have some sort of a benefit and an experience from it. But it's not the same as a hypnotherapy session just because you know, I'm working with what comes up with the person in that moment.
Mm,
So we're going on a journey through their subconscious based on what, because you can talk also. So
yes.
the releasing the stress part I usually do in silence. Sometimes at the end of that, I'll say, you know, what's the main emotion that came up for you? So let's explore that. So it's not personalized. I think that's the
Yeah.
issue with the self hypnosis.
Just presumably you could do that over Zoom. Do you do it over Zoom and things like this, sort of remotely, so that people can put in headphones, they can relax, they don't need to see you, but they can hear you, they can respond back to you, and as long as the internet connection doesn't suddenly disappear, it's like, oh, I'm left in limbo. You know, presumably you could. Is that something that people do?
I mostly work online now.
Right.
two times in my experience doing this now for a few years, the internet has cut off. It's never been an issue because before I even started doing it online, there was someone who told me that she was in this deep, relaxed state, and the internet cut off, and she panicked. So I make a point at the beginning of every session to just say, if I suddenly stop talking to you and if I disappear, it's just like waking up in the morning. Just open your eyes, come back, nothing to worry about. But yeah, most of my work now is, I can do a session with anyone, but most of my work now is, and the reason that we ended up connecting is for we could say the truth freedom movement, or people that feel, that are diving down rabbit holes or feeling that they've been harmed in some way over the last 3 years. And I work specifically kind of serving that community.
Right.
So that community is all over the world, and
Because there's a lot of things that once you sort of go down rabbit holes and things, whether they're blind rabbit holes or there's genuine things, it can be quite frightening. You can discover things that you really didn't want to discover or didn't even know was down there, and that can be quite trauma, and you can carry that away. I mean, I know when I started getting in this and talking about this and realized that people wanted me to carry on talking and was sending me stuff, I was walking away from the computer quite horrified about what was going on, the real sinister stuff. And you sort of go through this, you sort of go right down, and then you've got to claw yourself back again. And you can feel the pit of your stomach, and you're going to bed with all these thoughts going around and going, oh my God, we're all dead. It's over. Everything's finished. And then you're sort of rebuilding the world around you. And presumably some people are better at coping with that and others are not. And that's where I can see somebody like yourself coming to there to sort of help them through it all.
Well, I've been through it myself. I believe that for me, it was the war on terror was when I started to question everything.
Right.
And I feel like there's a process that, maybe is not the same for everyone. But, first of all, we have to go through that cognitive dissonance of, okay, the reality out there is not the way that I first thought it was.
Yes.
Then it's a natural process, I think, of like wanting to then to find out, well, what don't I know? And when we go into the what I don't know, we can end up going into a really dark place where we feel like, okay, well, then we've got no chance if this is all going on. But then the stage after that is, I call it like reclaiming our power. So it's like, okay, so how can I now do something so that I am now free of these fears, these onion layers, this conditioning, and then focusing on, how can I serve? What can I do? How can I contribute? And there's a lot of latent fears and traumas, I think, that come up when we start going into those rabbit holes or joining those dots.
Yes.
The only thing I'll probably add, this is why I just went, because I wasn't sure whether to jump into this bit or not, is the way I see it is that some of the systems out there are abusive. It's like an abusive system in some way. And I liken it to an abusive relationship, in that, you can say that, if you're in an abusive relationship, you could say perhaps the person is broken, the abuser is broken. You could say the system is broken. And what do you do in an abusive relationship? Well, the only solution in an abusive relationship is to walk away, heal your wounds, and create a better reality for yourself. And I feel that's what we need to do on a global scale as well. Each and every one of us needs to identify it, work on our wounds, and then focus on the reality that we'd like to have instead.
You were telling me about the Conscious People's Network, so this might be a good time to talk about that. So as we are rebuilding our lives, and many people have gone through all these rabbit holes, and some people are, of course, all the time just joining for the very first time as people start to awaken to what is really going on. And there's lots of different grassroots movements going on, different truth movements, freedom movements, sovereignty movements, health movements, spiritual movements, all of that. And people are You know, they're all working very often separately. They may not even know there's another place that are doing similar things around the world, nearby or distant. And I think this, as you said in the title, it's a network. So just explain what it is.
Sure. It started out as the C word, positive news,
Right.
on Telegram. And I was reporting from a positive perspective on Telegram, what was going on over the last 3 years. So I was just reporting it from a perspective that makes us feel good. And that was using positive psychology. It was bringing in a bit more of the critical thinking from the university, positive psychology, constructive journalism, solutions focused journalism. Um, and a lot of people, it grew. I interviewed Dr. Tess Laurie right at the beginning, who's hosting who's part of organizing this Better Way conference that you're going to be joining in the summer.
2nd to 4th of June. But book your tickets now. So just get that in.
Yeah, and yes, and I got feedback from it that thank you, I can breathe again, I feel hope again. You've got no idea how much this has helped. But also, people were coming to me and wanted to kind of contribute, so we started offering daily support sessions for people as well. It's morphed now, it's changed into the Conscious People's Network, and the Conscious People's Network is that while I've been kind of offering my service through this period of time, I've also come across amazing people within the World Council for Health, the People's Health Alliance, and many of, you interviewed Catherine McBean as well, many other amazing people. And so I feel like my role in this is to just kind of be a support or hold a space as we move from the old to the new. And so the Conscious People's Network now is a network of people who are awake and aware, and providing a space for those people that are organized, that are part of other organizations, to collaborate and network with each other. But also we've got a community of people that are following the channel that can also network and talk and speak with these people. So it's very much about no hierarchy, bringing it down to the people, and let's all just network, communicate, and support each other as we continue now, and allow what manifests from those communications to just happen. I don't have any particular vision of how that networking or collaboration can then unfold. But just allowing people, providing a space for people to communicate and talk to each other there.
And do you think, as I do, that this is, we've had these sort of things in the past, but this now is like the biggest time. Many more people are aware and waking up to the things, mainly because of what happened 3 years ago, and what seems to be being shoved down us at breakneck speed. That this is the moment. This is the kind of the beginning of something actually that is, the snowball is beginning to roll, as it were, as more people are aware of a whole host of different things, that we've come to that point where we just will not tolerate any more of this nonsense, and people are going, and more people are coming on board. And of course we have the technology and the social media platforms and things like the Telegram groups and all of this, that I'm losing my thread here, but I'm just asking, do you agree that this is the best time now ever for this sort of movement to roll into much more mainstream recognition, I suppose?
Yeah, I think that a few reasons. I mean, one of them was, I talked about the war on terror. When you talked about, things that you'd worked out then, you were considered to be a tinfoil hat,
Yeah.
a crazy person. Now, when people talk about, things that have been going on that they disagree with, I find that people are very open to have those types of conversations. Also, because of what's happened over these last 3 years, it's not been people behind a computer kind of working all this stuff out, but it's actually uh, experts, professionals, doctors, medical experts that have come forward and said, well, this doesn't add up, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, there are surveys out there that say that something like 1 out of 3 Canadians feel like, they've been harmed, and then there's, half of the global population feel like freedoms are being taken away and things like this. So there is a huge awakening going on around the world to what's going on. But as we talked about before, once you go through that cognitive dissonance, it can feel like a really lonely place, and it
Yeah.
can feel really scary. And so that's why it's important also to provide support for people, and also to just kind of, hammer it home that it's normal. It's a normal part of the process um, of peeling away those onion layers, and finding out who we are once we've peeled away the stuff which actually
Yes.
wasn't there to serve us in the first place.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. And what with these networks that are going on, more and more people are coming on board and sharing their stories, and it just seems to be growing exponentially, and that can only be a good thing. And it seems to me that there's no way back. You can't, once you've awoken, you can't go back, and nobody wants what's coming down the line, and that we're all making a bit of a stand and finding our own way forward.
It's a little bit like one of the Matrix movies, I think, where the guy says, I just want to be able to go back into the Matrix and taste a beef burger or a steak. And it's a steak again. I just want to be able to taste a steak again. It's you can't. Once you've realized
Yeah.
once you've kind of realized things, there's no putting that back in the box again.
No.
But the thing is, as you said, this is a really exciting, inspiring time, because the you're joining the Better Way conference. So many amazing people coming together to discuss. I'm now going to be the hypnotherapy ambassador for the People's Health Alliance, because I'm very much feel like I'm an ambassador for hypnotherapy, because I believe going into the subconscious is such an important part of the process, the intuition and the healing.
Mm.
But also, I'm massive ambassador for what they're doing with the People's Health Alliance as well, because it's about normal everyday people creating health hubs,
Yes.
and now food and farming, growing your own food, and they're bringing an educational aspect into it as well.
It is. I mean,
It's amazing.
it is to me. It's strange. It's as if we've gone through an experiment. I keep thinking now this is an experiment that we've gone through the last 150 years of trying highly industrialized way of living, and actually we've discovered that not only is it manipulative by a select few who are trying to sort of get as much money and control and power, but actually it's no good for the ordinary everyday person. And like all experiments, it's an experiment, and we realize it's failed, but that's okay, because we've learnt. We won't bother with that anymore. We'll go back. There's the merits of what we had of growing stuff. We've still got technology which will help us move forward with all of these things, that we can have smaller hubs, and people can get together, and communities can grow, and new technology will have cleaner air and cleaner things, and we won't need all the pollutants and stuff that we've got, and we've kind of had to go through this, and the future, I think, is actually very bright. We've just got this little fight dealing with these nutcases, but once we've dealt with that, which I think we will, because there's more of us than them, and we are stronger, and we're getting stronger all the time, and I think the future is really exciting. So
I agree totally. I think it's extremely exciting, and I've only named, the World Council for Health and the People's Health Alliance, but there's so many other
yeah.
amazing organizations, and many are involved in this, networking in this Conscious People's Network as well. I won't go through all, obviously won't go through them all now, but the only thing that what it reminds me of is, in the Second World War, we repurposed the whole of society in days or weeks, in England, in the UK, to service this war. and support this war. Well, what if the people decided to get together and galvanize and repurpose for a better world, or even an ideal world, or the world that we'd all be happy living in? I think it could happen rapidly. But I do feel that a big part of it is working through that doom and gloom part until we feel that, okay, I can now enter into, when I do sessions, sometimes people say, got this amazing idea, I'd love to write this book, or I'd love to start this thing, but I'm afraid. Well, where does the fear come from? Let's find out where that fear is, because once we come at it from a balanced place or space, then we feel we're not bringing our baggage into the situation, is I guess what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's been fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much, Robito. And you'll give me some links so we can put contact details, and they'll all be in the description and what have you, so people can contact you and they can get sessions and find out more and all of that, and find out more about the Conscious People's Network as well. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been absolutely fascinating to hear that perspective, because that was a subject, hypnosis. I haven't really come back to it. I mean, it was in my early 20s when I was sort of fiddling around with all of this, and then life goes on. And it's funny how life, you do things in an earlier life and they come back to you, and you've got a completely different opinion, and you meet other people who are doing it, and it's just marvelous, really. So brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Good. More power to you, sir. Appreciate you coming on the show. Hope people have got something out of that. And let's hope that a lot of people get in touch with you and book some sessions and all of that. That would be great too.
And hopefully, check out the Conscious People's Network as well. I'll share the links with you. I can quickly say that robito.info will just take you to a link tree with the links. And also, because we mentioned before the interview about your dad and you doing the hypnosis and stuff, it would also, there's so much more we could have dived into there. But yeah, it was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Well, we can always come back and do another recording, because I'm sure people will say, oh, we'd like to hear more. I like to sort of keep these round about the hour long videos, just so that they don't go on too long. But yeah, we can always do another session in a few months' time. It would be great.
Thank you so much.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. That's Robito, and do check out the links. And I will be back with some more interviews and bits and pieces, of course, in the future. Until then, from Robito and myself, goodbye.